Hello guys, I'm 6 here and welcome to a brand new video where today I'm going to be talking about the 10 games that I've enjoyed the most throughout 2020. Now, just to clarify, this video is not me going to be talking about the 10 best games that have come out throughout 2020. No, it is about 10 games that I have played throughout the span of the year that I've enjoyed the most. I feel like this is a good way to talk about what I've been playing and games that I generally like, but may not have had a good enough opportunity to make a video about. Yeah, of course, some games that I have made videos about will be on here, past or present, or maybe even future. But I think, this is a fun video to make. One thing I will be including as well with each of the games will be my current playtime as of the recording of this video. So of course, these playtimes will inevitably only go up as time has gone on. But I think including this is a pretty good metric, as you can sort of see, how much roughly I enjoyed these games based upon how much time I've put into them. So, let's get straight into it. Now, starting off at number 10 with Ravenfield. Just to clarify, just because it's number 10 doesn't mean it's bad. I have played many games this year, so being number 10 on this list is pretty much an honor within itself. I've played almost too many games this year, but Ravenfield, it'd be a crime to not include on this list, especially as you can see in the background with mods, because this game has truly come alive in terms of the modding scene this year, with many high quality mods being pushed into the game. The game itself is great to begin with. It's a really solid platform that's sort of a good blend of casual gameplay but also with a bit of realism. I think it's great fun, and the way the developer has leaned into mods and included mod support is fantastic. It's made it into one of, if not the best, sandbox shooters available on Steam, if not in the entire gaming market. Next up on this list is Cyberpunk 2077, the most recent game to be acquired for this list. Big thanks as well to Crizzy for sending me gameplay, as I cannot record this game. It's a miracle it even runs on my PC, so massive props for that. I can get about 720p 30 FPS at best, but that's playable, so it's fine for me. Now, the game, I've enjoyed it. I haven't gotten too far yet into the game, really. There's still quite a bit more for me to do, but I love the characters, the world building, and all that lot the game does, the writing, and all that. I think it's all great. What puts it back from being higher on this list, however, is the gameplay. The gameplay is fine. I don't have any huge issues with it, but to me it does feel like a bunch of loosely connected ideas that have kind of been thrown together just for the sake of having variety and some sort of depth, but ultimately it doesn't really quite work. It doesn't really feel focused and honed in on anything, and so it does feel a little bit loose from the gameplay side, but it does the job at the end of the day, and it's not too bad. But yeah, overall, I do enjoy the game, and it'd be good to see how this game progresses in the future. Now, talk about Grand Theft Auto 5. Not the cesspit that is GTA Online, but raw single-player Grand Theft Auto 5. The one that hasn't been updated in like 5 years, besides a couple of small fixes here and there. Obviously, the playtime is not indicative of single player alone. I have played a lot of online, I have played a lot of modded single player, but for this I am going to be talking about raw single player, no mods, no online, just single player. And yeah, I replayed for it like a couple of weeks ago, so I guess you could say this is a bit of recency bias, but I did have a good time. It was a lot more fun than I remembered it being. Of course, the gameplay is nothing special. It wasn't anything particularly special even back in 2013, but I think just the world, the characters, the events of the game are a lot of fun to play through, and the game offers up a ridiculous amount of content, but that content is all well thought out and well put together. It's very enjoyable to play through. So if you have never played the single player stuff only online, or you just haven't played the single player stuff in a very long time, I would heavily recommend going back and just playing it through again. Or if it's your first time, for the first time. It definitely is a bit underappreciated compared to online, which is a fucking mess these days. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I got to say on it. Oh boy, it's now time to talk about I Divine Cybermancy. And this game is probably one of the most bizarre games I've enjoyed this year. It's also the second most recently acquired game besides Cyberpunk, so those play hours are pretty significant for the length of time I've owned this game. But they were damn well worth it. This is probably one of the most unique gaming experiences I've had throughout 2020. That's not to say this game is amazing. It is a very rough gem, but once you can get past some of its weaker points, it is definitely a gem. And I mean, they're a lot easier to excuse seeing as it is an indie title. To give a brief summary of the game, it is a indie RPG based in the Source engine, where you're sort of some weird space cyber cult militia. It's really bizarre, wacky story. The translations, because the game was originally French, do give this game a very unique charm. Some things maybe don't make as much sense as they should because of it, but I think it just adds to the game, being as bizarre as it is. Seeing as this is the game where you can hack a door, fail to hack the door, have the door hack you back, steal your eyes, and so then you have to hack yourself to actually return your proper vision. Yeah, that's sort of the sort of shit you're signing up to if you play I, and I would heavily recommend picking it up. Coming in at number 6 is Arma 3. This game is a whole lot of fun. It is probably one of my favorite first-person shooter games of all time. It is a tactical military simulator, and I feel like it is one that almost near perfectly captures the atmosphere of being in sort of occupied enemy territory. Yeah, it's a game that I do enjoy. It's very complex. It's very buggy as well, but I'm going to say it is the bugs do add to the charm of the game in a way. Yeah, maybe some of them probably should have been fixed, but I like the game the way it is. A big highlight of the game as well is bunching together a massive group of friends and just making a squad and committing war crimes. That sounds really ridiculous, but you know, it is a big sandbox, and whilst the game is very realistic and serious, it can immediately flip to being the exact opposite, and that's one of the things I love. It's not restrictive. It kind of lets you do your own thing, and it's a lot of fun to play, especially with friends. Now, coming into the top 5, we have the original Deus Ex. Apologies for how poor the gameplay has turned out. It's not the kindest on newer systems, and also I had to bump the brightness up for this footage because I didn't realise how dark it was. It's not intended to be in the corner, but that's just kind of how the recording came out as well. So apologies for that. But the original Deus Ex, surprisingly enough, 2020 was my first ever time playing this game. But I can see why this game was as highly rated and is still as highly rated as it is. And if anything, this game helped change my opinions and standpoints on gaming as a whole. Seeing as, for how old this game is, all the things and dynamics it was able to achieve all the way back then, that some modern games struggle to replicate even to this day. Is this game perfect though? No. The combat in this game is horrendously bad, and I did start to enjoy the game a little bit less during the second half, as I did feel it started to get a bit more combat heavy, as stronger enemies required stronger weapons to take down. And so therefore, you know, I kind of felt like A little bit of that interactivity and freedom you had was lost, but overall, this game is a masterpiece, and it should be experienced by everyone. Now it's time for Saints Row the Third, or should I say more of the entire Saints Row franchise. I've put Saints Row the Third up here because it is the one I've played the most throughout 2020, but to be honest, throughout the latter half of 2019 and throughout the entirety of 2020, the Saints Row games have just been a heckload of fun to play, and I have sunk countless hours into all of the ones that are available on PC, but as I said, this is the one I've played the most throughout 2020. So why Saints Row 3 over the rest? I don't know, I feel like it's probably the most polished, most grounded, and just kind of most enjoyable overall out of the lot to me personally. Saints Row 2 does have better customization and whatnot, but I do feel the gameplay aged very poorly, and also the poor PC optimization. And Saints Row 4, it's a lot of fun, but it is lacking in some ways in comparison to Saints Row 3. So that's why I've included 3 out of the lot. But all of those games are ridiculously fun. I could play these games for hundreds and hundreds of hours more than I currently have. I've beaten these games multiple times. It's bad. I'm borderline hooked to the Saints Row franchise, and I'm intensely awaiting the announcement of the next game in the franchise. Coming into the top 3 now, we are starting it off with Halo the Master Chief Collection. It's Halo on PC, that's immediately going to get it lots of brownie points. Before this, the only Halo game that I completed is one you can see in the back, Combat Evolved. So being able to play through the entire rest of the Bungie Halos, as well as Halo 4, it's been fantastic. I've loved it. Every game in the Master Chief Collection is great. I'd say, obviously, Halo 4 is the least great out of the lot, but it's still a very solid and well-rounded game. All of the games have been a blast to play through. I've played them through both solo and co-op with friends. It's an amazing collection of a series of amazing games. I don't really know what else there is to say, other than to just play it yourself. It's great value for what it is. And yeah, I can easily see myself sinking a lot more time into this as time goes on. Now, coming into number 2, we have No Man's Sky. Again, big thanks to Mons this time for sending over the footage. Unless you wanted to watch a Microsoft PowerPoint slideshow, I couldn't record, so big props to him and Chrissy earlier for sending over the footage. Links down in the description to them. So big thanks to them. Yeah, so No Man's Sky was an addiction this year at one point. Pretty much every minute I had of gameplay time was spent playing No Man's Sky. Not exactly healthy, but that was how hooked I got into the game. It's a lot of fun. It's very casual, it's very chill, it's very relaxed. It's a game that you can hop into and easily waste hours upon hours of time, as every time I fire up No Man's Sky, I never sat around really thinking, what is there for me to do? There is always something for me to do, and once I complete that thing, it then leads on to another thing, and so the gameplay sessions just keep going on and on and on and on. And then I realize it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, I should probably get to sleep. But yeah, the game is great. It's come a very long way since its initial launch. And I think now it's complete enough to be worth picking up. So, yeah, just try not to get addicted. Coming in at number 1 spot, it is of course Assetto Corsa. Over my a little bit over 2.5 years of owning this game, I've put way too much time into it, as you can see by the player time. Yeah, it's not the greatest simulator ever made, but the sheer community behind Assetto Corsa is what's kept me playing for so long, and keeping it fresh and fun and enjoyable. A big personal reason this year as well was the commencing of a bi-weekly community race that I do with a bunch of friends. It's obviously not something I've really been speaking about here because it's kind of just a thing between me and friends, but it's been a cracking load of fun. It's what the footage you can see in the background here is from. It's been a lot of fun, and it's definitely pushed my interest in sim racing to just an even higher level throughout 2020. And yeah, I mean, it's, I'm still very passionate about sim racing despite 9 out of the 10 games on this list not being sim racing related in any means. It's a game that I'm definitely going to be sinking in probably easily another 1,000 hours unless something crazy happens amongst the next couple of years. So yeah. That would do it for my top 10 most enjoyed games of 2020. So if you did enjoy, I appreciate it. If you're new, subscribe, I appreciate it as well. And if you've stayed this long, why not throw down your top 10 most enjoyed games throughout 2020, or even just 1, 3, 5, however many. I'd be interested to hear what some of your guys' most enjoyed games throughout the year were. So that's it for now. Goodbye.